kanji for Lesson 8 of Adventures in Japanese 2. And if you're taking Japanese with Well-Trained Mind Academy, that means it's your last bunch of kanji for your Japanese 3 class. Yay! We made it here. Really happy with how many kanji we've learned this year. Really happy with how much grammar we've accomplished this year. This is great. Really happy. So, let's jump in here with tomo for friend. Has an element that we've seen previously. This. And remember that some kanji have the diagonal first and then the horizontal, while some kanji have the horizontal first and then the diagonal. This one is horizontal, then diagonal. Then you put this little element, which we've seen once or twice. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is tomo. You're responsible for writing this. Dachi, you are responsible for recognizing, but you don't have to know how to write it yet. It looks like this. Pretty complicated. For right now, if it's like you can remember like a bunch of lines and then like this little river or road radical on the side. You don't have to know how to write it yet, but you do know how to recognize it. You have to know how to recognize it, dachi. It's also pronounced tachi, so that little pluralizer for groups of people. Like hitotachi for that group of people, or those guys, those people. And say you're talking about like Ken and his friends, you might say Ken-kun tachi. Ken-kun tachi, or just Ken-tachi. Ken and them. Right, so tomo and dachi. Next, foot or leg. It's actually just like a little pictogram of a person sticking their foot and leg out there. Ashi, which we learned back in Japanese 1. Ashi. Obviously, your right leg or your right foot would be migi ashi, and your left leg, left foot would be hidari ashi. Give you the stroke order once more. Regular stroke order for kuchi. Then 1, 2, 3, and 4. Make the foot first and then the leg. Next. Points or spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So like a little similar to a katakana to, but sticking out straight instead of pointing downwards, on top of a sort of squished kuchi. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can imagine that these are like the points underneath the scoreboard or something like that. 10. So 8 points would be 8点. And we'll learn the counting system for points, which will probably you'll probably be able to figure out just from knowing that it's 8点what the rest of them will be. But we'll talk about that in lesson 1, part 1 or part 2 of this lesson. 10. These are points, like not just points in a game, but also like points on a test. Half. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's try it again so that it's not so ugly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I like to picture it as like having originally been a stack of 3 things, and then like you karate chop it and smack it in half, and these are the 2 pieces of the top one flying away from each other. It's basically only ever pronounced han, like there is another pronunciation, but it's a very advanced pronunciation. And so this is like, for example, 1 o'clock and 30 minutes, so 1:30. Ichiji han. I'm gonna write it like that. Ichiji han. If you want to take half of something, like say you ate half of the cake all by yourself, keiki o hanbun tabeta. Han bun, the fraction of 1/2. And a half of a year, like a 1 semester like study abroad program or something. It's going to be han toshi. Hantoshi. Next, place. 1, whoops, already went wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, that little element that we've encountered previously. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Place. And so this is tokoro, like we talked about much earlier in the year, like inu wa doa no tokoro ni imasu. It can also be pronounced sho, like in jimusho, the office, or jusho, the living address. And we can actually do that because sundeimasu, which we learned way back when, is also pronounced ju. Jusho, your living address, your residence. Jusho. So tokoro or sho. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. In handwriting, this little point often becomes diagonalized. In print, it's always very straight horizontal, but in handwriting, it often winds up pointing downwards a bit, and that's fine. Tokoro. Next one, I told you last lesson that you were going to learn another e that is eiga for movie, and it's this. This means to project or to reflect, and yep, it's got this same element here that did appear in eigo no e. And yes, it's the sound signal. Although this by itself is not actually pronounced e, which is kind of weird. But it is a sound signal that, generally speaking, it'll be pronounced e or sometimes o in a kanji. So this is the e that means movie, and you can know that this is the one that means movie because it's got this radical here that in this case interpret it to mean light. Projection, reflection. So it's the e that has to do with light, as opposed to the e that has to do with flowers or grass, which is this radical here. Think about an English garden. I don't know if you know what an English garden looks like, but they're often sort of full of this sort of riot of like wildflowers and overgrowing, vines and things like that. So the grassy or flowery English garden, e for eigo, and the light that comes out of the old-fashioned film projector, e for eiga. And the ga, we're going to learn that next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a rare element, 8. This is the ga. It also can be pronounced kaku, but I don't think that we have any vocab words that need that yet. It's also the ga of manga. The man of manga is quite complex, so I'm not going to expect you to know the man of manga, but this is the ga of manga, and it's also the e, the ga of eiga. So it means picture. So eiga, a reflected picture. Manga, a whimsical picture. One more time with the stroke order on ga. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, next, to take. Draw an ear, just sort of squished up to the left. And then this element that was also part of like tomo for friend. This is toru, like 写真を撮ります to take a picture. 日本語を撮っています I'm taking Japanese. And we also will learn, or perhaps we already have learned it, 取りに行きます. 取りに行きます to go to get something and bring it back. 取りに行きます like to go get the car. 車を取りに行きます or to go get some toilet paper out of the garage. トイレットペーパーを取りに行きます. One more time on this. You draw your ear, following the stroke order that we learned to write the kanji for ear, and then we give that little element there. Kind of like a katakana nu, but not quite. Next one. I hope you've gotten familiar enough with the feeling of writing person that you are not going to get it confused with how it feels to write to enter into, which really feels very different in your hand. So person, longer on the left, shorter on the right. Enter, shorter on the left, longer on the right. Hairu means to enter. Hairimasu. Hairu, hairimasu. Haitte kudasai. お風呂に入ります to get into the bath, to take a bath. You can also put something in to like the fridge or into your bag or something like that, and that would be 入れる、入れます. 入れてください. And then occasionally you'll see it pronounced by itself, iri, like this. We learned that the word for exit was deguchi, using the kanji for demasu, to exit. The kanji for entrance is iriguchi, and it's usually written just like this, although occasionally a ri will pop right in between. Usually, though, it's just this, iriguchi. Iriguchi. Entrance. All right, that's to enter. Last one, to run. Please don't confuse this with foot, leg. The top is different. Dirt on the top. Then that same sort of funny element, kicking element from foot or leg. It means to run. So it's hashiru, hashirimasu. Hashiru, hashirimasu, hashitte. You can maybe think of these lines here as like speed lines, so that you've taken the guy that you drew and drawn some speed lines through him as he's running along. Or you can think that he got dirt all over his face somehow, and now he's running to try and get to wash the dirt off his face as fast as he can, because he's like germophobic. I don't know. But keep them separate. Don't confuse them. Hashiru. All right. We already talked about one of our recognition kanji, the pluralizing tachi, dachi. The other recognition kanji is door, to, or do. There are a few different words for door. Tobira is another one. To is one. Doa is one. Door sounds the most like a door on hinges that you pull a handle to open and it swings open. To and tobira both sound more like gateways or sliding doors that open by sliding them apart from one another, I think. So this to, I think that they're teaching it just because it's an element in tokoro that we talked about earlier. Again, in print, it will be very firmly like this, but in handwriting, that horizontal typically becomes just like a dot. And it appears in a surname, Kido-san. Kido-san. You never know who you're going to meet in Japan. I like to introduce as many surnames as possible using the kanji that we're learning, just because it can be helpful. But I personally have never met anybody named Kido-san, although it's a name that I've heard. Right. So those are your last kanji for Japanese 3 if you're taking Japanese through the Academy. Obviously, there's a few more chapters of Adventures in Japanese too, and hopefully you will continue your studies and finish up the book. Happy studying!